Let's watch some clips breaking down what happened and what we know first from the attack in New Orleans, and then we'll also discuss the possibly connected but probably not Tesla explosion in Vegas, as well as the right, as always, are trying to turn this into some political thing hit against the Democrats. I've already received the Democrat backed terrorist attacks, which is insane when you learn the details of these, but people don't care about realities in MAGA. So let's jump right in and see what fact checks and context we can provide.
Well, piecing together much more of a profile of Shamsuddin Jabbar Wolf. And what we've been able to learn, we've culled from public records as well as videos and information he himself has put online. What you're looking at here is an image of him from a YouTube video posted in 2020. It has since been taken down. This video, he has titled it Personal Introduction. He says that he was born in Beaumont, Texas. He talks about his service as a member of the U.S. Army, so he's an Army veteran, and his work in information technology as well as working in real estate.
Now, the first piece of propaganda coming out about this was that he was an illegal immigrant who crossed the border. Even Donald Trump is still saying this, right? And when that didn't pan out, it became, well, let's blame the Democrats. They were behind it. And when there's nothing to even kind of connect that, I mean, that's just insane. It's like, well, okay, this is how we can now bring back the all Muslims are terrorists. And you have like Kash Patel saying they're like he's a Palestinian, which isn't even true. And it's like a foreign terror attack. Also no evidence of this. I mean, it's like more hurtful than helpful to engage in stereotypes. They're never true, they're never effective, and they create much more negative outcomes for the groups that get stereotyped. They don't like cause them to do better or anything. But then we also find out that the attacker, the suspect, is not just a citizen, but an Army veteran, avid gun lover, and crypto investor. He was recently divorced, and he spoke about it being troubling and bitter, with this being his second divorce that he was in the midst of. He also wrote extensively of financial problems, house payments he couldn't afford, debt he accrued trying to get started in real estate, capitalism crushing him as he's trying to follow the American dream, doing what they tell him to do, but it's going wrong. So by all accounts, it just seems he was an American, maybe with a little PTSD from the Army that went untreated, unnoticed, finally snapping and carrying out a tragedy, which to me speaks to the ranging need for mental health treatments, accessible mental health evaluations, and then of course gun laws as well, even though firearms are on the backdrop of this story as they only played a part in the shootout with the police, not the killing of the now 15 victims and I think it's 35 that were hospitalized.
Looking at increasing the footprint, certainly expanding the road closures throughout the day tomorrow. Look, I think it's important to remember that the only way to really protect people from evil is to crush it. And the one person who knows how to do that is the incoming President Donald Trump. And I believe that his nominee, Kristi Noem, understands that as well. I look forward to Inauguration Day so that we put in place policies where we're putting handcuffs on the bad guys instead of our law enforcement.
So first thing to point out that I mentioned briefly earlier, Trump is now actively blaming both undocumented immigrants and, the Democrats, despite this being a citizen. And the only connection being drawn from the suspect in the New Orleans attack is he was possibly affiliated with ISIS. I think there was like an ISIS flag on his car or something like that. Which president was it that promised to the world that they defeated ISIS, that claimed that they did it in a week? They got rid of ISIS completely, that they're not a threat anymore. I wonder if him or his base will admit that he lied, and how maybe that could lead us a little less prepared to stop an attack from a terrorist organization if the masses thinks they've been defeated. I don't know, maybe, right? And then you have guys like Kash Patel, the incoming director of FBI, saying that the suspect is Palestinian and that it's a foreign terror attack. He's not a Palestinian, and authorities do not believe this to be true. I mean, it's tragic and horrendous enough as is, with 15 dead, 35 hospitalized, but these guys have to make it worse with racism? It's kind of weird that they have to slip that in just to get it a little further down the line of dramatized, right? It's crazy to me how normalized the right has made this, where they look at a tragedy happen, and rather than addressing the root causes of the tragedy, if you're wanting to speak to that, or just paying condolences, the right thing to do, you just instantly point at the other party and say, they did this. 15 people are dead because a man's mental health went unchecked and untreated. But the only thing MAGA cares about is making this some hit at Biden or Democrats. What are we doing?
when that explosion happened. We were able to see video that they released that shows the explosives that were contained inside. Right there you can see the Tesla bed, the Cybertruck bed. And some of those explosives included fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel. And all of that was connected to a detonation device that was controlled by the driver. Now, what's incredible that the sheriff pointed out is that the explosion was really contained to the Cybertruck because of the way that the Cybertruck is built. Apparently, the explosion went upwards, not outward, and so none of the glass at the Trump Tower was broken. 7 people were injured with minor injuries, but all of them are okay, and they have been released from the hospital. Now, Las Vegas police believe this was an isolated incident. They are not willing to say at this point that it is connected to the New Orleans incident, but they are investigating.
So this one is obviously the Tesla explosion. This happened in Vegas, and it was outside of a Trump building where, oh my God, thank the Lord it was this clunky piece of shit that the explosives were in. Like, who would have thought the worst car design of all time would actually pay off for something? But what they said at the end here is very important to remember, because if you go on X, if you hear from, your MAGA friends, these attacks are absolutely connected. There's no doubt about it, for no other reason than both suspects rented their car from Turo. And they're both illegal immigrants, if you ask Trump, who conspired with Democrats to make this happen because, Democrats let him in and hate America or whatever. Like, the insanity in MAGA is wild to me. Someone ramming into civilians and killing 15, injuring over 30, and a Tesla explosion killing at least 1 aren't dramatic enough for these people. Like, that's not news enough for these people. It's not something to talk about. Having to talk about how mental health probably caused this isn't a story that the right cares about. So they have to go a little further to use it to attack Democrats. So then they care. They have to make it crazier. That way they can point at Dems and say, look bad. And then their base will actually care about it. I want you all to keep this in mind. The infatuation that these people have with sensationalizing tragedies, every single news story with deaths or anything, into some failure of the government because the Democrats are in charge. But when Trump's in charge, it's never going to be his fault. It'll be, we have to look at the state. It's the state's fault, unless it's a red state. Then it'll be, we'll look at the city, unless it's a red city. Then it'll be look at the district or something. If it's a red district, it'll just be he's crazy. What are we supposed to do? Some people just do crazy things.